Okay.
Okay.
We don't have a leader, but maybe we need a facilitator. Does anybody want to facilitate? Or maybe we don't even need that.
While you're thinking about it, I'll make just a few announcements. I think people here know who we are. My name's Rosemary, and Alan is also the co-host, even though there's no real co-host today. Recordings are on our YouTube channel, and also on our PPA website. Next month, Alan is giving another, started to say episode, perhaps that's right, in his Planetarium Educators Workshops. It'll be on how the audience sees it. It will be 1 hour earlier, 4 weeks from today. So 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 1900 UTC.
I think that's an hour later than we are now.
It's an hour later.
Yeah.
I wrote it down right and said it wrong. It's an hour later. I'm glad I said the times. Um, so if you would put your name in the chat so that we can just have an idea of who is here. There's no set time. We'll run out when the discussion's pretty much over or when people need to leave. Just a reminder of the topic for today. The idea is there's no one really leading this discussion. Just an open discussion of issues you may have had, like awkward questions from the audience, any discipline issues, technical difficulties, unusual situations, or publicity problems. And if you have ideas for how to work with them, if it worked, if it didn't work. And in some cases, what's the personal strangest thing that happened to you? And how did you handle it? How did you wish you handled it? And maybe what issues are you dealing with now? So it's pretty much a broad topic, and I'm just going to be quiet and let it start. So for the people who just came in, this is a presenterless open discussion. So we're very much hoping that somebody will jump in and initiate something along the ideas of what I mentioned or anything that you're having difficulty with in the planetarium.
I can jump in. So this could not come at a better time for me, honestly. I am very excited to have this conversation and to use you guys all as a resource. So our planetarium just recently opened in an area of the world where we have never had a planetarium before. So I've had experience I'm from Alaska, and I've had experience running two planetariums in Anchorage. So that was a community that was used to planetarium etiquette. So people kind of knew what they were coming to when they came to a planetarium. So when I opened up this planetarium in Fairbanks, Alaska, it's a smaller community, more tight-knit community. The word spreads very quickly about planetariums. So we had a lot of people come. We had record-breaking open day, which was awesome. But one thing that was very clear, which I kind of was anticipating, was people not really knowing the etiquette for coming to a planetarium theater. So I would love some expertise, some advice on how to teach our community the basic planetarium etiquette, like no late entry. That's one thing that people are having a really hard time with up here. And they will not listen to signs. We have a rope across the door. They go past it. They go in the exit door. Um, Anything they can to get into the theater after the show has started. Also things like bringing kids, younger kids, to the planetarium shows that are not specifically geared towards them. Um, Before I've definitely said, we don't recommend for kids 4 and under. We're not going to stop you from bringing them in, but this community has insisted on bringing young kids to the planetarium shows. And they definitely have a lot of them who have been interruptive, but most of the people have been, you know, understanding, and like if a kid is having a hard time, they'll take him out of the theater and come back in. But some families are, even if my staff goes in and politely asks them to step outside for a minute and come back in, people are very resistant to that. So those are the kind of two things that I would like advice on. Young families and people not respecting the not coming in late policy.
That's, I think that's a lot to chew on, actually. There are several issues there, and it's like
Mhm.
what happens before people even come into the planetarium, and actually what do you do at the beginning of the planetarium show? I think those are those are two things that affect how the audience uh well, you called it etiquette. How do we
Yes.
teach the audience etiquette?
Yeah, and so what I have done so far is on our website, it says the basic etiquette. Like we recommend this age group. There's no late entry. We even say ticket sales stop 5 minutes before the show. We have signs around when they sell tickets at the front of the museum, so they have to come to the museum first. The people who are selling tickets at the visitor service desk mention these things as well. And we mention it at the beginning of the planetarium show when we do our announcements at the very beginning. So any advice on what else I could do, I would love.
I can jump in about the young kid issue. What's worked for me anyway is prevention is key. So we allow seating for up to 15 minutes before the show, and I try to talk to every single person, even though we have a fairly large planetarium. And when there's young kids, especially at a show that's not aimed at them, I go over to the families, welcome them, greet them. Is it your first time here? And then I point out the exit escape hatch that they can use should their little one become restless or not be able to stay quiet to try to set that social norm. And then I say it again in the intro to the audience again to set the social norm that if anybody, has trouble staying quiet, we want to make sure everybody can hear. There's the exit. You can come in and out as much as you need. Now, that might not work for your setup. We have a good setup where you can enter and leave, and it's not a problem. Another idea is give a refund if people have to leave the show in the first 15 minutes. And I have other thoughts about the other issue, but I'll let others chime in.
So we have a similar thing where we will sometimes we'll be able to see that a family is coming in that's not appropriate for the show, and we will catch them on the way in and say, "Hey, you might want a different show." Sometimes we'll have a show that's just specifically for children, and it's not good for adults necessarily if they don't have little kids with them. And so we try and be flexible and say, hey, as long as we're not expecting sold out shows, just come with your ticket an hour later, come see the next show, and that's just fine. We'll also see people who didn't know they had to get tickets at the last minute, and we'll try and be flexible and say, we'll do the honor system, go get the tickets after the show, come in, and we don't have time to sell a ticket right now. Just Scouts Honor, just go get a ticket after the show. And vast majority of people actually do that.
I
And
remember,
also one more thing, similar. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, finish.
I was gonna say similar to Amy, we will tell people, if you got some restless kids, there is or restless astronauts, whatever you want to call them, there is room for them to stay at the top of the theater near the exit doors. I say near the exit doors, hint, hint, wink, wink. If they need to make a fast escape, that's where they'll be. And we've got some stuffed animals near the console, and so if someone's really the right age where a stuffed animal might help, we'll offer that to them near the exit.
That's a good
This
idea.
is this a re, what you one thing you said reminded me of, what you do with late people who show up without a ticket. I remember long, long ago when I first started working at the planetarium, and this was in the days of, well, there were credit cards, but people did pay with cash a lot. And I remember saying, "Oh, just pay me, give me the cash, and I'll take it to the front desk." So
Mhm.
that was an honor system on me.
Mhm. I don't think we're allowed to handle cash
Yeah,
in my
no,
position, but
no,
yeah,
that was
or anything else.
highly
But yeah,
not recommended.
yeah.
Well, this is all great advice. Thank you guys for mentioning that.
What about the kids who come in with flashing lights on their shoes? What do we do about that?
If I can catch them on the way in, I'll ask them to please see if they can cover them up or do something with them. But
Take them off.
once they're seated, it's pretty hard to do something. I will try if I see something in the middle of the show, especially if it's a night sky show. I will try and tell them. Sorry, someone out there with a light, something. If you could please keep that off. I just try and be polite about it and give them a chance to catch it without trying to be too direct about it.
Anybody else have that experience?
Yeah, I would have them take off their shoes and put them in the under the chair in front of them, and don't forget them on the way out.
Of course, then the issue of light in the planetarium, the elephant in the room is cell phones, uh, not just for light, but sound. What do we do about that?
I've been always in the beginning announcements when the room starts to get dark. I let people know that you know, give them a moment to take the time to silence their phones and put it away and say something clever like, the stars are brighter than your notifications. You don't need to have your phone out during this. That's been working pretty good so far.
We point out that the light will shine on your face, so we'll know who has it out, and there'll be a giant shadow of your head on the dome behind you. But we've actually changed our messaging just recently to say, please no cell phones. It does, hurt your night vision and that of those around you. But we now add if you do require a device for disability or language translation purposes, that is acceptable, but please be very mindful, kind of thing. Most people keep them off.
Bob Bonadurer has a little 1 minute full dome clip that's really cute, and at the end asks people to turn off their cell phones. And so just having a cute little thing at the first to remind people of certain things that you want done is also a good way to do it. And if I find the YouTube link for the preview for that, I'll put it in the chat. I think
I
it's
think
free.
mm, okay. I think the instructions before starting the show is very important. You have to put the instructions in a clear place in clear words before you start your show. After that, you behave like the football referee. A yellow card the first one time. I give you or you or he or she a yellow card for the first time if you don't switch off your mobile, for example, or switch off the light, you will be out and take the cash money of your tickets. This is successful with my planetarium.
Do you have a penalty box for them?
No, no. The penalty is to go out.
Hmm.
Especially if there are a group. If there are a group of 30 or 40 students or audience, I speaking directly to the supervisor. Please help me for controlling your team or controlling your group. It will work also.
I'd like to jump in with a kind of a bothersome experience that I had, but it follows up on the importance of the initial announcement. In that we did 3 shows on Saturdays. I was the Saturday Planetarium guy, and the middle show, 1, 2, and 3, the middle show is for kids. And so we were doing the kids show, and there was an adult with a not very young kid, but a special needs kid who was making a lot of noise, so much so that I couldn't give the initial announcements with the safety information and all that kind of stuff. And so I said, listen, I can't continue and can't do the show unless the child behaves, or I just can't start. And so eventually the adult and the child left. The adult was saying, well, when you start and turn off the lights, he'll behave. But that wouldn't work. And I couldn't wait forever because the 3 o'clock show would start pretty soon after the 2 o'clock show. So, they did leave, and I was able to do the children's show. But and I do believe I made the right choice, but I didn't really feel good about it. So I just wanted to bring that up to say you do get put into situations sometimes that are not ideal, but you make the best that you can.
That sounds like one of the toughest situations. And I wonder if anybody else has different strategies for, well, there's special needs kids who, just can barely control themselves or not control themselves. But then there's other, regular kids who can't control themselves either. What do people do about that?
I guess I got a little tense when you used the word behavior. Uh, if it is really a special needs kid. So I think how this gets worded may also be an important aspect. The only time it's occurred for me is in school groups where there's always an adult that comes in with a special needs kid along with the rest of the students. And sometimes even then they have to get up and leave. But our situation is always more informal than anybody else's here, with respect to people coming in late or if they have to leave early. So that's the only time that I've had those issues.
I can understand the problem for a public show. I do private shows for special needs students. I'm actually in a special needs school. And so several times a year, I will do programs for the students. And I have to say that the best thing I ever saw was a child who was completely immobile and nonverbal and had trouble focusing on anything, playing the movie on the dome, and they just went wild with excitement. It was so great to see them actually responding to something going on. So they may not behave the way we want everybody to, but they are getting something out of it. And the other kids around them didn't care.
I guess last month we had a show on special specific programs for special needs people, and there were some good ideas there. But the idea was to maybe once a month have at least something that targets people who might not be otherwise able to sit in an audience, quiet or otherwise.
That's something I've definitely been working towards implementing here, is having shows specifically also for young families with young kids who may not want to sit in a chair. And also for special needs. If you guys have those programs, do you find that it helps those people to come to a show specifically for them for the other shows? So we have less of disruptive people in other shows because they know they have a specific show for them.
Well, we have shows for, early childhood shows that is effective at aiming, that's like an audience, audience aiming at that audience. And the show is especially geared for them. And there's a different way of starting those programs. Um, Sometimes it involves using humor or ways of capturing their attention that is, I don't know. I'm not very good at it. I think there's like first grade and kindergarten teachers who are way better at this than I am, to capture the attention of people and then take control from kids who would otherwise not be paying attention to you. But yeah, having specific programs for the audience, I think that's a good thing.
What
Often,
what if you're facing a special group with a special need, especially like mute and deaf, they are can speak and can't hear. But at that time, it was the first time for me to do a show for group like such that. In last December, I got 30 students, mute and deaf, and speaking to the supervisor. After few words, I let him to make the conversation by his hand to the group. At that time, I like the light switched on, slightly switched on to see the doom. In the same time, see the supervisor when they describe what happened in the sky. It was a very fantastic experience for me to do a show like that with a special need, mute and deaf. Also concerning to the chair people can't walking, it's very difficult to manage them to put them on the dome with their chairs. At that time, they standing on the سلالم يعني on the chairs one by one and to see the sky. So the special need is very challenge for planetariums to satisfy satisfying their needs.
I had,
On the other hand, okay.
no, go ahead. I was changing the topic,
O-
so go
o-
ahead.
on the other hand, the very young kids, يعني two or from 2 to 4 years old. In this time, there's no planetarium show at all. Only music and dance and clamping with your. So you have to dance with them. You have to make colors in the sky, birds in the sky, animals. No planetarium show at all. For so we switch it on the planetarium to be something some circs to be like look like a circus for them. They dancing and clamp with you and applause with you, and they was very happy with that experience in the planetarium. But before entering the theater, you have to speak to them slightly. You have to describe what you are going to see inside this dome, because sometimes the kids crying after you closing the door, after switch off the light of the dome, they very cried and affair. So you have to prepare themselves to prepare the kids before entering your theater. It's very important according to, and also playing on the sound of music and colors, as I said.
A lot of our shows are advertised as family shows. And so again, we're a small community, small planetarium. It's really common for families to come in which the sort of age appropriate kid is there, and then there's a smaller kid with the adults. You know, it's both parents and their kids. And I'm pretty much okay with that because where we are, we're trying to get audience. and people are very understanding about people having families, and so it doesn't really cause any problems. But I was going to just one of the questions I wanted to get out, so I'll just get it out now, is in terms of the strangest experience I had was maybe in the first year I started having classrooms in the planetarium, and I've only done the planetarium for the last 6 or so years, seriously. A kid who is probably to be first grade, second grade, maybe third grade at the highest, asked me, why do we exist? And I was floored because I immediately thought, what parent put them up to this? Because it didn't seem like a question that a kid would think of on their own. And of course, I said something like, "That's a really great question. I don't know, but I'm really happy." And then I gave the characteristics of how wonderful the world is, and so forth. Um, but I kept thinking that somebody must have put them up to that question.
I think that has to do with a lot. There's a lot of science in that, like
Yeah,
what was the origin of life, and even why do we live in a universe that has the right physical properties that allow for anything to exist.
yeah.
That's what comes to my mind.
But I think it was probably a first grader. It was, yeah, like I said, not much older than that.
So they weren't deep into physics.
No, and it wasn't really it might have been a hidden religious question. I don't know. I mean, sometimes there are religious questions that come up.
For those, I always assume positive intent. So I try to take it seriously, even if it seemed like it was intended as a gotcha or as a joke, all the Uranus questions. And so they don't bother me for that reason. Also, I feel like kids tend to ask why questions when what they really mean is how. So sometimes I will turn a why question into a how question, and that can help as well. But I mean, I like what you did. Basically, if you can find any kernel of relevance to something that you know, just go off that. Like, well, I can't answer that question exactly, but I can tell you this other thing that's kind of related, blah, blah, blah.
Another strategy is to turn the to is to probe further into what the question actually is. It's related to what you just said, but to say, could you tell me more or explain a little bit more about what your question is? Um, to just to get them to talk more about what they're getting at.
I so agree with that, especially because some of the time I feel like the questions are actually more about wanting to make a connection. They don't really need to know the answer to that specific thing. They just wanted to like say something and connect. And so asking, oh, tell me more about that. Sounds like you're really interested in aliens if they ask something about aliens, Tell me more about how you got interested in that. Whatever. There's so many options. If you see it as the goal is connection rather than them trying to do a gotcha or something.
Well, my goal was to actually try to understand the question because there's a lot of times I'll get a question that I think is, my first reaction is, well, that's a dumb question or it's a stupid question, even though there are, you know, there's no such thing as a stupid question. But there's questions that initially you think, well, that's a dumb question. But then on reflection, you think, well, what did they really mean by that? Maybe there's really something to that question. And so you need to get them to explain what they meant by it.
I had a question one time. A little girl asked, "What do stars smell like?" And like, where do you go with that? I mean, they're made of gases. Maybe that's what they're getting at. They're smelling. And the only thing I could think of at the time was, "Well, go out tonight and smell them and see what you think." Get them out under the real stars.
Well, Rosemary, when you brought up the idea of strange experiences, I think, maybe we could do a little round robin here of what is the strangest thing that ever happened in your planetarium. Uh, and it's not limited to audience things. It could be a technical issue, but Um, are we up for that? Maybe. Could be interesting.
I think a good fraction said yes, so I would go for it.
I
You
guess.
can start picking out people, or people can just jump in.
Uh, well, I hate to make people uncomfortable, but you came to this session and there's no leader to the session. I guess I can facilitate this part. Um, so I'll just call on a name, then you make sure you remember to unmute. Todd, you raised your hand.
So years ago, I had a new theater to work in. It was a Spitz 512 on an elevator, and we were doing constellation programs with movies, and so we had to switch back and forth with the elevator up and down. And as I switched to the constellation program, the elevator started coming up, and the star ball got above the edge, and the elevator stopped. It would not go any further. I later learned that there was a reset switch. If you could reach inside, you could reset the elevator, but that did not help me for that show.
It's embarrassing. Yeah, okay, this could be like the hospitality suite at a IPS conference. Let's see. Um, Amy, you want to go next?
Okay, I think their question is about embarrassing, or no, it's about
Strange.
but I'm gonna talk about potentially embarrassing. So I'm changing the question. Which is I was going on to rambling on about something I don't usually talk about, which is the details of Pluto's reclassification. So I think this was quite a while ago. Um, and I mentioned Mike Brown, the astronomer, and because I had just read a book that he had written, and so I had all these details really fresh in my mind. And somebody all the way across the planetarium called out, "I'm his sister." And she didn't live in North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina. She lived in California. So that was like a wild coincidence that I was so relieved. I had her come up to me at the end. I was like, "Did I get the details right?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, that was great." And then another embarrassing, this was counted as embarrassing. I was going on about sort of a theme of vacationing on other planets with, of course, the messages, take-home messages. There's no place like home. Like it's a terrible idea for humans to go anywhere else. And I was going on about Mars, about it's not as great a destination as you might think. And everybody started laughing. And it turns out that the young woman who had organized the group had applied to one of those like Mars One missions or something. I think it's all gone defunct now, but they were never really serious. But she had in her mind that she actually wanted to travel to Mars, and that's why she had organized her group. So that was embarrassing. I suggested she apply to NASA instead.
You have yeah, well, that gets at the idea of, human exploration of space. How some astronomers are totally opposed to human exploration of space. Um, hey, Drew, do you want to go for it?
Okay, I don't know if I have a specific thing I can think of right at the moment. I'm sure I've got something that will pop up later on today when I'm thinking, not thinking so hard about it. But I will say that I always, when we have like a big, in the middle of a show and I have some kind of big technical issue that causes me to pause the show and reboot computers and have everyone sit there and wait for a while. I always try and have something in my back pocket as far as something I can talk about without the video projectors on or while we're waiting. And my go-to is usually star charts, how they work, why the East and West is backwards, and where to go get them from our website and things like that. And it gives me enough time to vamp through the rebooting process just to not have people sit in the dark in silence waiting for computers to boot.
Have a backup live.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, Justin, I haven't heard from you yet. You want to go?
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. Hi, everyone. Let's see. So I think the most interesting thing that's happened to me. Someone kind of brought this up earlier was I had a family come in to one of our full dome presentations, one of our full dome shows, and it was a multi-generational group. There was kids with their parents and grandparents all together. And as they were kind of coming in, I noticed they possibly may not have spoken English very well. So about halfway through the show, I'd given the rules, I'd established what's going to happen. About halfway through the show, I look up from behind the desk, and multiple people from this family are on their phones. And so I get up and I'm like, oh, great, I have to go deal with this. And I get up, and the one woman is recording with her camera. And so I politely asked her, like, please don't record during the show. You can take pictures afterwards. And I looked over, and one of the grandparents was actually using Google Translate on his phone, like live. So it was live translating the show to him, which I thought was very interesting. And I let that go because I was like, that's a really good use of a phone during a show, actually. And there was no issues, but I just thought I'd never encountered that before. And yeah, might see that again in the future. We'll see.
That's Google Translate. Yeah. Let's see. Tad, haven't heard from you. You want to go?
Yeah. Hey, I know I've been sitting here trying to think of something. I think anything really embarrassing I probably blocked out, so I don't nothing came up during comes to mind for a show. But I think actually outside the planetarium, I started in my career doing a lot of solar observing, and I remember one time we had a spectroscope set up, and I was showing the solar spectrum, and it was focused on magnesium. And I was talking about magnesium and how it's in the sun and how it's in our bodies, and it's this really important element. And for example, it's something um, that's used during child for pregnant women. Um, and with the preface that I've never been pregnant, so I'm not saying this from my experience, but I was explaining this, and then the woman I was talking to was like, "Oh yeah," and she just said something, she just said like, "Oh yeah, I'm a nurse." Like I know that, in a nice way. She was very proud of it and or fine with it, which was a little embarrassing because it was definitely explaining something to the expert there. But she did say I was explaining it all correctly, which was really nice. But that always sticks out.
Let's see. We haven't heard. Oh, Lewis. Lewis, how about you want to unmute?
Hello, everybody. I don't speak English very well. I am in Argentina. How are you? A few days ago, we had a problem with the sound. We're showing a movie, and I can hear the music, but I can't hear the voice of the speaker. So I didn't know. I reset the movie 2 or 3 times. And then, thanks God, I have a stereophonic version of the same movie. Later, I found out that the central channel of my equipment was down. So the voice is not coming out, okay? So, well, something to learn.
Different kind of entertainment there. Just music, huh?
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes I wish I had. There's something to be said for shows that don't have narration and they're just visual and music, but that's not what you intended.
No, no, no.
Well, boy, this is practically a little IPS conference here. People from Argentina and well, and Egypt. Oh, and speaking of which, Omar, do you want to? Did you? Oh, did you tell us a story yet? I think you did, but not. Let's see. In this round robin, did you say a story
Of troubleshooting, you mean?
of anything weird, anything
Of
strange that happened in your planetarium?
Yeah, yeah. If you get some problem, technical problem during the show itself, I'm sharing the problem with the audience. I speaking to my machine. I asking them to pray with me. It will be working again. Please be friendly with me and let's speak to the computer. Let me just give me 2 or 3 minutes to restart our program, and the audience call with me. Let's start again, please. Please start again my planetarium. Please start again my computer. So we have a bad luck, all of us bad luck. Don't worry about that. We don't leave this theater until the show will be starting again. In that time, we'll be friendly with them to speak, to decrease the turbulence, and it would be happy with them. Some audience understand this problem is technical problem. It's not always happen. Maybe the troubleshooting can do with your mobile or you at your home. Something in your TV or your computer or laptop can be some troubleshooting. The same like here in the planetarium. It's only troubleshooting. Let's solve it together. If it's not solved, so we can say we are sorry for that, and we have refund your tickets, but give me 2 or 5 minutes maximum to resolve the problem. Some audience accept that, and other not accepting this issue. And in general, it will be friendly with your audience to share with them what happened technically and what happened in the show itself. And it's very fair to restart the show if we solve the problem, like the sound system or the projector or something like that, and you solve it in just 5 minutes. It's very fair to restart again or to give them a bonus. I give you a bonus and extra 5 or 10 minutes live show for the constellations or the stars. For the apologize from my planetarium to you for that for that this troubling.
Yeah, have to switch gears quickly on your feet for that.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Also, you have to say that in the structures of the tickets, maybe some troubleshooting happen. In this time, it's not our responsibility, but we will try to solve it. Because if it's happened, the audience understands that there are some instruction before entrance. Because it's a machine, it's computer. The troubleshooting may maybe happen in any time.
that's interesting that you have the disclaimer ahead of time. Yeah. Omega, do you have anything that you'd like to contribute?
Yes, I do have a few stories, but one of them that first came to mind about, a difficult or strange time in the planetarium is, oh, this was years ago, in the Anchorage Museum Planetarium, we were showing the late night Pink Floyd shows. And we had a guest who didn't seem intoxicated, but they jumped up in the middle of the show and just vomited everywhere. They managed to make it like not on anybody or the seats. They managed to make it like towards the door, but that was definitely one of the more strange things. And at that point, like you have no choice. You kind of have to stop the show and be like, "I'm sorry, everyone. There's been a biological hazard introduced to the environment." Um, and then you just kind of have to refund everybody and be like, "Sorry, we got to clean this up. You can come to the next show next week." Um, so that was always an interesting thing that I purposely try to avoid in the future. But yeah.
I have something along those lines. I'll contribute one that most of our places have no smoking rules, and I remember one time I was doing a program. Now, there's a difference between doing recorded programs and doing live programs, and I only know how to do live programs. Well, actually, I did a recorded program once at another planetarium, but um, in one of our programs, there was high school students, and somebody lit up a cigarette right in the middle of the program. This is a very small planetarium. It's like, fewer than 30 people in there. And it was an optomechanical projector. So I don't usually blow up and get angry during a program. And I don't think I really blew up, but I did get very stern and say, you have to put that out. You don't realize how smoke, you realize how many lenses are on this machine here and what smoke will do to the lenses and what we're going to have to do to clean this up. I was kind of reading the riot act to him about smoke and lenses. So, anyway, he had to put out his cigarette. That there's also chewing gum and things like that, which you never know about until you start cleaning the seats later. Okay, let's see. I missed well, Rosemary, I think. Did I get Jeff.
Well,
What
yeah, Jeff.
Jeff.
Hey, so I had a couple of things that came to mind. First was back when I had a Spitz A3P planetarium projector that is a star ball, and the light source was an arc lamp, and it blew up in the middle of a program. And not only did the lamp blow up, but it took out the fisheye lens too. And so, yeah, you can't recover from that. And of course, what the audience hears, and it was a school group, is glass that sounds like it's flying everywhere, but of course, it's contained inside the ball. And it was a program that really kind of required the stars in order to kind of illustrate some of the concepts. And so we turned it into kind of a 3D program where I had kids posing as different constellations around the edges of the planetarium, and kind of set up took the top off of a meg light so that you'd have like a light source at the center for the sun, resting that on the base of the star ball, and then kind of showed like how throughout the night you would have the constellations changing as your part of the Earth is facing a different direction. And so we were able to, make it still a nice teaching opportunity, and they still kind of got into it. But that was probably one of the biggest technical issues that I had to come up. And the other behavioral thing that came to mind was it was a scout group. And what I would do for scouts is that for their astronomy badge, they were supposed to learn how to find constellations, learn how to use a star chart. And so, I've handed out the star charts. We're going over like how to use them. Lights are up so that they can see the star charts. And the adults are all just sitting in the back row talking to each other while I'm teaching. And about half of the kids are turning their star charts into paper airplanes and actually even throwing them. And so I hinted a couple of times, as I was seeing it happening, so that maybe some of the adults would intervene. I just had to stop the program and just say, hey, guys, it's not fair to these kids that are trying to pay attention for the rest of you to be doing this. And so I'm going to just collect the sheets of the people who are not using them properly. And if you would like to share with somebody that is using their star chart properly, you can ask them. And we kind of moved on. But like the adults still were just in the back kind of doing their own thing. So that was probably the most shocking audience participation or lack of participation that I experienced.
That sounds like it was bordering on chaos in a way, but it also illustrates the point that I was happy to hear you say that a lot of the kids were trying to were on task and were trying to focus. And that also brings up the point that if there is a really rowdy, there doesn't have to be a really rowdy group. There only takes one or two kids to ruin it for everybody and make it so that nobody can do anything. Um, and you have to deal with that somehow at the time. Some when I was doing workshops a long time ago, I realized that, or actually no, doing like after school classes, repeat visits with people. I started thinking that I'm not really teaching science. A lot of times, I'm teaching how to how to be a respectful human being, um, and sometimes you have to do that. Okay, have we heard from everybody?
No,
Anybody?
I'll jump
Cal,
in.
Cal, yeah.
Yes. So this is an embarrassing thing, but fortunately not for me, but for one of the audience members. Again, these always happen during the children's show, and is start off the show by getting the kids least comfortable in the planetarium, his special domed room, and does anybody have a room like this at home, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, does anybody have any questions? And so this little girl who was there with her father decided not to ask a question, but to give out a personal family secret, saying that, her mother was older than her father. And you could see the father just shrink down next to her. Uh, and so I immediately changed the subject, carried on or whatever, but it was a pretty funny thing where, kids will say things that'll embarrass their adults in a public setting like that.
Kids say the funniest things.
As Art Linkletter used to say, yep.
I'll add one more after this. Go ahead, Alan.
No, no. I was just going to say, what's wrong with being older? But anyway, go ahead.
First, to remind people if they haven't signed up, we would like for them to put their name and where they're from in the chat. And then my main issue, and it's happened in the last couple of years, the first one with some high school, sort of alternative high school students who don't normally get really interested in academics. And the whole thing was just malfunctioning. It would restart every few minutes. And so I didn't really they were there for a couple of hours because it was a bus trip, special trip. And I didn't really have a backup plan. And I managed to pull out an old projector and some slides from a talk I'd given and tried to make it appropriate. But that was a lesson learned. And just like the idea of when the A3P didn't work, what do you do? And the other thing is the transition in going from a fixed dome to a mobile planetarium with the same maker of the software and the projector and so forth, thinking it was going to be a easy transition. And so I thought I'd done enough practicing, but when we got into the first use of the mobile dome, the local wireless network that came with it wasn't really connecting right. It would go off and connect with something else. And I was used to using it as the main form of controls. And I was having trouble with another kind of control. And so it'd been a long time since I'd used the most fundamental control, which was a remote control, almost no technology. And so I was kind of caught short, not knowing what to do. So backup plans in as many situations as you can think of.
Well, I think everybody has contributed in a round robin, so it's open now for whatever anybody wants to talk about. Um, any other amazing stories?
I do have another kind of situation that arose just last week. So right now we have students who are running most of the planetarium shows. Um, and so they're still learning how to deal with certain difficult people, but they're doing very good. But we did have two service animals come in to our planetarium dome. One day was definitely very well trained and looked like it might have actually been a service animal. But the next day, another person brought a dog in, and they did have like a harness for it that said service animal and everything. But this dog was barking during the whole show. And when my student worker tried to go up and like ask the owner to quiet their dog down, the dog growled at them. And yeah, and it's like, what do you do in that kind of situation? I know we have regulations we got to follow with service animals, but has anyone had anything like that happen before? Do you guys have like get service animals into the dome at all anymore?
Is there paperwork that people with service animals are supposed to keep with them?
They don't need paperwork.
Huh.
You are legally allowed to ask them if the service animal has been trained or what has been trained for. You're not allowed to ask them what they need the service animal for, just if the service animal has been trained.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of restrictions on what we can ask and have them provide proof.
That has some, I hesitate to say this, but I think I will say it, that has some similarity to a disruptive student or a disruptive kid, but it's a dog. And
Mhm.
so it's some of the same strategies would apply, which mostly which if they don't stop, that they kind of have to leave. Um,
Yeah, we did. My student workers were able to get the owner to take the dog out, which was he respectfully did. But I mean, what do you do in that situation? I think they
yeah.
handled it the best they could, honestly. But
The people have talked about projector problems. I have to, I hesitate to say this too, but the most embarrassing thing that I did was when I was doing outreach programs with Portable Planetarium back in the 1980s. I went to a school. I had things packed up, drove out there, and when I went to set up, I realized that I didn't have the star projector. And oh my God, I thought we're just gonna have to reschedule this. I can't do it without a star projector. But that was after a 45-minute hour drive, and it was terrible. Such a incompetent person.
Checklist.
Yeah, checklist.
Checklist. Even for fixed domes, checklist. It's always good.
Right.
I sometimes, like I said, ours is pretty informal. Sometimes I even forget to introduce myself or whoever else is there helping that day.
You know, one of a couple of you have mentioned, what you do as a backup for when technical things go wrong. Does anybody else have another kind of trick or strategy that they've used, or something in your bag of tricks to pull out when something goes wrong?
If it's something that doesn't require my attention, like I've got a second person in the room who's dealing with it, or if it's like literally click a button and just wait for a minute or two, I just ask the audience to ask questions. And somebody will take pity on me and ask a question. They seem to love to ask, so what's your favorite constellation?
Mm.
That seems to work. People have Most people have great sympathy for technical problems, I've learned, because they've all experienced it themselves.
That reminds me that I was in a tour group at NASA at the Johnson Space Center And the first thing they had was an astronaut come and speak to us. But the astronaut got in front, and I forgot who it was, but he got up in front of us and he said, "Okay, are there any questions?" That's the first thing he said. And it was that was it. It was just all questions, and it was very effective. It was a great, he ended up with that, you can tell a lot of stories, based on questions that people ask. Then there was the IPS conference where Frank Peterson played the role of Frank Peterson is a planetarian person, passed away. He was from Tromsø, Norway. And he dressed up as Tycho Brahe, and gave a whole talk about, Tycho Brahe's observatory and how he, all his observations. And then at the end of his talk, he concluded his talk and said, "And there will be no questions." I guess we're at the hour, um, and it's okay to go away at any time. But we can keep things going. And we'll keep the recording going, I think, in case, I mean, there's some pretty interesting things that have been said, and there may be a few more interesting things that will be said. So we'll keep the recording going. But I'd like to say thank you, all of you. This was an experiment to see if we had any kind of discussion um, that was of value. And I see our our planetarian person from Portugal is here. Welcome, Dario. We've
Yeah,
been,
I just arrived, so
yeah, yeah. Well,
I,
you can listen to a recording. There's a lot of interesting stories that were told, and the stories were about what is the strangest thing that happened in your planetarium. So if you wanted to share anything that like along those lines, think about it and just speak up. Say unmute.
okay.
Um, was this a time zone? Was it? I always get time zone issues. I showed up an hour late, or
And actually, I got distracted doing other things, mainly dinner, and
uh,
then I suddenly realized, oh, last Friday.
well,
Let's see if they are still online and talking.
yep, we're still here, and it's an interesting discussion. What are the problems with audiences that you've encountered? Omar. Omar, you raised your hand, but you're on mute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to share with you the biggest problem in my work is to leave your planetarium. After 1 year of my retirement from Library of Alexandria, I can't leave without planetarium. So I solved this problem to make what is called family project. I'm working on to build a new portable planetarium from O to Z. Manufacture the dome itself inflatable locally in the market of Egypt here, and with this laptop and pay the projector and fisheye lens from USA, and installed a free software like Stellarium and Spacecrafter, and starting to market my new project for the schools and clubs and the people. We also we installed a new website and something like of marketing issue for sharing the new what is called portable planetarium in my country. All the people don't hear about what is called portable planetarium. Some of them heard about planetarium, something like the fixed one at Library of Alexandria, for example, or the one at Cairo. But what about you said portable planetarium? What's mobile planetarium is? So you have to describe to the audience, describe to the people with small videos and a lot of pictures The mobile planetarium is inflatable dome. You go inside and see the sky, simulation of the sky, and spend 20 to 30 minutes with the sky and short shows of the planetarium. So it's now it's become 7 months or 8 months. This is my new project. I'm working with my family, me, my wife, and uh, my daughter and my kids also working on that project. When we got a deal with some schools or groups, we go as a family to the school to do the planetarium shows and some simple workshop like the sundial and observing the sun with the solar filter. And also I have small telescope with them. So it's a good challenge for me to working on that newborn project. Some it's completely different between the fixed planetarium and the mobile one. The fixed planetarium, you have all facilities in your system, but in the mobile planetarium, it's very difficult to bring all the system, sound system, and the little dome and the blower and blah 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 to the schools and to the audience. And please give me 20 to 30 minutes to install the inflatable dome. And the audience like this situation. They see the dome blow up and inflatable, and they are willing to do it to go inside the dome. Me and my family like this new project and pray with me, pray to me to be successful and continue on this newborn project. This is my story I'd like to share with you. Thank you.
Your retirement project. Just can't get away from the planetarium.
Yeah, that's it.
The only one issue I really have right now is that we're kind of a closed community, no roads in or out. So the audience are the locals. And of course, we have a lot of tourists in the summer, but we're volunteer and we can't handle the tourists. So we do different shows almost every week, at least one show. And sometimes I do movies for kids or shows for kids. And I have trouble getting the audience to come back. And, how do you get them out of their homes sometimes? I know I don't like to go places myself, so I understand. I live 30 minutes from downtown, so it takes something special for me to do that. But I guess I'm trying to find the right combination of what to do, what to call it. Like when we have a movie, I generally let people leave if they want to after the movie, if they want to stay, do a night sky. Same thing kind of with kids' movies. And my initial, when we first got a planetarium with a digital projector, I thought the thing to do is bring them there for this few things that the planetarium can do that nobody else can do. But I'm beginning to wonder if I need to combine some other types of activities to kind of draw them in instead of just what a planetarium can do with the equipment. I don't know if anybody else has the problem. I mean, publicity is its own issue, but what type of shows do you create to get that local audience to come and to come often?
There's one idea comes to mind is, well, of course, my solution to everything is to get the audience involved actively, and that will, if they find it's an enriching experience, that is. But your question is, what can you do that's different? And that inherently is different every time, actually, depending on what people ask. But you can ask different questions, and one strategy that comes to mind is that look for new astronomical news. That this is the focus of, okay, we're going to talk about the latest in astronomy, whatever it happens to be. And we'll bat around questions about that latest development in astronomy. And then along with that, you can have a standard, what's in the sky tonight kind of thing, constellations or whatever. Or, Another thing that comes to mind is ask them if they want to see what the sky looks like from someplace else on the earth, you know, like
Yeah.
Southern Hemisphere or, someplace that they wish they could visit. Um, so getting the audience involved, I think, is inherently makes it different every time.
Yeah, I used to at the third show that we used to do, which was just the sky this month or this week. I would always end the show by saying, "Okay, it's time to play Stump the Planetarium Guy," and come up with, hit me with your best questions. And that forced me to actually pay attention to the news and what was going on in astronomy uh, before I did the shows, so that I'd be at least have a chance at not getting stumped.
Some things that I really did to help um, when I was mainly dealing with just local audiences. We had a lot of repeat customers, and especially when we had no budget for advertising at all, is gear events around what's happening in astronomy, but also there's a lot of events or dates around the year, like Astronomy Day, Earth Day, all these different things. And if you have events specifically for that day, I know it draws a lot more people in. So you can have like some activities that go along with it too. And then people come for activities plus the planetarium show. And then definitely if you advertise or you put out the news that goes along with something recent that happened, like especially for the Artemis 2 mission, that was a no-brainer to get new people into the dome or people come back to the dome. Um, but I definitely events is the biggest thing. So not just the regular planetarium show, but market it more towards this is
Yeah.
to celebrate this day. So you got to come for that day. Another thing is guest presenters. A lot of people, and I know you're here in Alaska, you just let me know if you want guest presenters from the Geophysical Institute or something.
Yeah.
One thing we can do is we can just zoom them into the dome. So if you have an extra projector with a laptop, have like a planetarium show, and then have someone come talk about some research they're doing or anything like that. Guest presenters are a really great thing. And actually all of them do it for free. So that's always a
Yeah.
good bang for your buck there.
I think NASA would probably easily provide scientists, especially if they don't have to travel.
They do as well, and you
Do
can sign
that.
up for astronomers to do
Yeah.
talks too. Sometimes they'll actually come in person.
Yeah.
Of course, then there's the musicians, music under the stars idea. Um, Live music. Well, it doesn't have to be live music. It could just have feature. Well, there's Omega. You were talking about Pink Floyd, I think, but there's all kinds of music.
Yeah, I did have live bands at my planetariums too, and I know there's a lot of amazing musicians in Alaska.
Yeah.
It's really easy to find some good musicians, even just like small two-piece to play music in the dome. And
Yeah.
that's always gone very well.
I want
All
to.
those were good ideas. Thank you.
I want to ask a question of the people who are well, of course, can't be of the people who are not here, but what do you think of the idea of presenterless or leaderless seminars focused on whatever subject, or and is that something that you would want to pursue in the future?
Yeah, this has been very helpful for me. Just kind of getting a round table and getting information from everyone who has experience in the same field. We all kind of go through the same stuff, so learning from each other is really helpful.
I'd agree with that.
Let's see, I'm seeing nods. What about subjects? Are there, what kind of subjects would you be interested, or do we need a subject to focus on, or should we just make it a hospitality suite. I guess either one. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah. I would try both. I think having a topic to focus around is helpful, but I mean, once in a while try one just without any focus at all and see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. I know we had one that it was only, there was one, I think we've actually had two of these where it was an old timers meeting, where we especially invited old timers, but newcomers were also welcome to hear the old timers rant about whatever they were going to rant about. Um, and newcomers have questions, of course, and they can rant about things too. But that was pretty successful. Could do that again.
I'll happily rant, but not with a recording.
Yeah. Well, I always say that, when we turn the recording off, I say, okay, now you can say whatever you want.